Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Abe with MysticGenMara.com, a small town mystic from the middle of Idaho. And tonight I want to kind of tie things up a little bit with one branch of modern day Wicca and witchcraft. So we started 2 weeks ago, and last week there was a lot going on. So 2 weeks ago we talked about Alex Sanders and the origins of the Alexandrian line of witchcraft. And tonight his co-founder is who I would like to talk about, and former spouse, and that is Maxine Sanders. But before we get into that, there is a little crochet update tonight. If I don't lose my hook and where I'm at here, because it's not quite finished, but my next skull shawl is just about complete. We go from a very light orange fading up to the darker depths of evil, if you want to go there. This one is going to be approximately 5 feet at the widest point, so it's a fairly large shawl. It's 100% cotton, so there's that. As soon as I have this done, I will have it posted on my website, and we'll give it a 2-week window because I have a lot going on in day job right now. So in the next 2 weeks or so, if you're interested in a skull based shawl, especially one that's more orange into the blacks, kind of look like coals really is what I was going for, is having that nice bright at the bottom and then it darkens as you come out. You can check that out. Like I said, should be 2 weeks from the date of this recording, which is 1/15 live stream, however you want to look at that. And with that, we will hop into our topic of discussion. And I talked a little bit about Maxine in the previous episode of Occult'n'crochet, and that was with Alexander, and it was more, or Alex, it was more just kind of, she was there. We didn't go too much into her history or where she's at and what she's doing and things like that. So we will start with her now. Arlene Maxine Morris was born in December of 1946. She was brought into this world in Cheshire, England. I watched clips on how to say that right and I still mess it up. Sorry. Interestingly enough, not much is said about Maxine's younger life. She was raised Roman Catholic though. And I have to say, and I found this with a couple other people over my research and my studies over the last 20 years, there's a fair amount, specifically with witchcraft and the Wicca groups, that have come from Roman Catholicism. Whether it's the structure, whether it's wanting to rebel, I'm not sure, but there's been a lot of them that have come out of that particular group. She went to school at St. Joseph's Convent School located in Manchester, and following her grammar school she went to, oh good grief, Loraburn Secretarial College. While in college, her mother, now this is like we talked about in the last episode, her mother made friends with a middle-aged man who was deeply interested in the esoteric world. How deep, her mother did not fully understand until later. Her mother eventually would introduce Maxine to this man as well. And this man, Maxine would meet through her mother. I totally typoed that, just 1 second. Was a man who would eventually come to change her life. For the good, really. And that was Alex Sanders, previous discussion topic. After a courtship, Maxine and Alex would marry in June of 1968. Alex would write in his diaries that Maxine was shy and modest to the point of being inexperienced. Why would you write that about someone who's literally 20 years your junior? Because there was that age difference there. He claimed her potential was awoken specifically through contact with him. There's a bit of an ego there, but he had a reason. He had a lot of knowledge and things to bring to the table for her. But see, that was his side of the story. Maxine's thoughts were very different on said subjects. She claims to have been initiated into a lodge on a more Egyptian mysticism form around the age of 15. The rituals for her initiation were performed in Alderley Edge in Cheshire. This is a small town within the, I guess you call it county maybe, of Cheshire. I'm not big on how England is broke up, unfortunately, and I should probably research that more. In this vein of the craft, though, Maxine said that herself and one other person were able to be initiated, and when she was 15, and this started a journey up a 3-tiered system. A lot like most modern day covens, there's a few that have a 5-tier system, but the majority of them are 3 tiers. By the age of 18, being a very studious young lady, she had already achieved 3rd degree witch. In a lot of covens, this is basically being an elder, or just before you become an elder within the coven. So that's really impressive for someone so young. There was some rumors, and this could be just people who didn't like her, that her position was strictly a passive one. She played no active role. From my research and the people that I know who are in different covens and things that I have looked into, practiced, etc., there's really not a position, so to speak, that is passive once you're initiated and starting to go through this process. It boils down to you are initiated, you start your learning. You step into the priest role, you're still learning, you're expanding, you're understanding the energies at that point. You step into high priest, high priestess role. That is where you are in kind of the one who's leading the group, so to speak. But then you step into elder. Even in an elder role, it's not passive. You're advising, you're guiding, you're there to help correct imbalances if they show up. The passive thing has got to be somebody who didn't like her and stuck that out there, because there's no there's no rhyme or reason when you really study these types of groups for the concept of passive. It just doesn't fit. When Alex and Maxine were touring or teaching, this is later on in their lives, many times she would be silent and present. Alex viewed her... Sorry, it's been a day. Alex would view her as the representation of the goddess in physical form. All forms of divine femininity were summed up in the beauty that was Maxine. So for him, as he taught, it would be having this representation, this representation of the divine goddess. She was dressed in these beautiful robes, had long blonde hair from what I've seen of earlier pictures, and she just had it, like, her facial features, her body structure. A lot of the pictures that I looked up were not things I can share on here because of the content. They're not bad. That's the part. It's just there's a little bit of suggestive nature to them. So, but that was the representation of the goddess made flesh, and that's how Alex would see her. But we're gonna hop back just a little bit because we just jumped back up into the 70s. Let's roll back here to her younger life a little bit. Maxine was actually fully in the broom closet for most of her younger life. Now, the broom closet is something that I was introduced to when I was about 22, 23, when I was really diving into this, but I didn't really know how to share it or talk to anyone about it. One of my Wiccan friends, a very dear friend even today, although we don't communicate as much as we used to, life happens, and that's as much my fault as it is anyone else's, but we were talking about some of this stuff, and she's like, so have you come out of the broom closet yet? And I was like, the heck is that? when you're in the broom closet, for those who don't understand or haven't heard this term before, it's when you're practicing something, magic, witchcraft, ceremonial mysticism, tarot readings, divination, but you don't let other people know. You're not open about your practice or your studies. And that's the broom closet, because back in the day, you had to keep your brooms hidden, your rituals and practices hidden. But when you come out of the broom closet, that means you're more open about it. And a lot of people, especially during this time period, would never talk about this stuff. As I talked about with the Golden Dawn, I completely just lost which one it was. I think it was Woodman. It was either Woodman or Westcott. One of them actually had to step away from the Golden Dawn because he couldn't be outed. His position in the community was just too high up. To be outed would be to destroy him. He couldn't come out of the broom closet. This was a time when it was becoming more accessible and more open to such things. And when Maxine was going through this process was in just after her and Alex got together. So how she came out of the broom closet was not something that she had planned, obviously. Some people plan very specific rituals. Sometimes they just start being more open about it instead of hiding. And that's actually the best way to do it, is just live your life. But I personally never had a full, I'm coming out of the broom closet, this is what I believe, this is how I practice. It was more, you just kind of integrate your spiritual practice into real everyday life, and people like it or lump it. That's just how I've dealt with it. But during a ritual in 1965, a newspaper photographer slipped in to witness the rites. So during the rites of Midsummer, which is a very, very powerful, divine, one of the Sabbats, they're all very powerful. This one is the height of summer. This is the height of masculine energy. It is a very, in that aspect, powerful solar-based rite. The photographer took several photos of different members, including Maxine. The publicity led to her being forced out of the broom closet. She wasn't really willing to go public with what she was doing at that time, but thanks to said paparazzi, for lack of a better term, she was forced out. This public attention did lead to some not so great things for her, though. The publicity surrounding this event actually caused a falling out with her mother. It was not a good time because her mom was okay with her doing the stuff in secret, but then when she went public, what will the neighbors think type of a thing. So there was some issues there. But they did reconcile later on, and thankfully it all happened before her mother passed away, which to me is a really good sign that things were kind of not glossed over, but fixed. Excuse me. Mom may not like it, but she's not going to hate her daughter for it. So that was, to me, that was the important part. When I was going through this, they just talked about this falling out that they had, and it was very traumatic for both parties, and I was like, did they fix this? Because you don't you don't want this kind of falling out with your parents, especially. But for them, they did reconcile. So one thing though, and this was just a really sad part of it as I was going through this period of time when her mother had passed, and I didn't put the dates down because that wasn't the part that stuck in my mind. Just after Maxine's mother had passed, Maxine was over to her mother's house taking care of odds and ends, doing the things you do when a loved one passes. And the neighbors chased Maxine out of the neighborhood. Get out of the house, chased her away. The stories of the time say that the neighbors threw stones and broke out every window of her mother's house. Real loving people there. Someone just died, she's mourning and having to go through the process of dealing with all the stuff, and the neighbors go bonkers because, "You're a witch! We're not in the 1600s, stop trying to burn people, knock it off." But that's some things that still happened, and this was only for 50, 60 years ago this all went down. The amount of freedom that we have, especially in this country, is fascinatingly amazing. But even with that, you still have people who think that someone who has this much of a different belief is evil. Nothing in her actions, nothing in her deeds, the fruits, did not bear evil. The people, though, that were trying to chase her out of the neighborhood, evil wears many disguises. So, there's, like I said, to me that was kind of upsetting. Like, you just lost your mom and now you're being chased out of the neighborhood. Cool it, people. But in good news, and we're going back again, that was a bit bump forward. In 1965, the same year of the outing, when she was chased out of the broom closet, so to speak, Maxine and Alex were ceremonially hand-fasted in the town where she was originally initiated, which was Alderley Edge. That's pretty cool, actually. In 1967, the couple moved to London, where they practiced their craft and their magic. This is where they initiated many future priests and priestesses from their basement flat in Notting Hill Gate. What I found interesting is in her information, they talk about where the initiations took place, kind of where they were founding their coven, so to speak. But in his, it just talks about the numbers, which were substantial, don't get me wrong. But her notes and journals and things that she's made public were more about where and kind of how things went. And publicity, thanks to Alex, would follow wherever they would go. And they were very, very much in the public eye when they moved back to London. On Beltane, so May 1st, April 30th, May 1st, that window of time, of 1968, they did officially participate in a civil ceremony in Kensington, London. And when it said civil ceremony, I had to kind of look it up a little bit. This is more of the formal Christian marriage. This is the one the government prefers, although at least in this country now, you can actually have a ordained priest, there's multiple ways to do that, who can practice a full hand fasting, and that is legally binding as a marriage certificate within the United States. I think it's that way now in England, but don't quote me on that. Anyone who knows, drop it in the chat, let me know, or the comments. As stated before, though, the couple did have 2 children, Maya, who was born in 1967, and Victor in 1972. From 1968 to 1972, Maxine initiated many priests and priestesses alongside her husband, Alex. Over time, they developed a specific vein of witchcraft that they would be known for today. This is what the origin of their coven was, which is now a worldwide coven, which is pretty cool. It was this line of witchcraft that they were deemed the king and queen of the witches. I don't think I really understood when I went through Alex's stuff how the name Alexandrian witchcraft would be devised, but Maxine would say that it was Stuart Farrar, which we'll talk about him later, that named the line in 1971. It was just after Maxine had initiated him. Stuart said the name was inspired to pay homage to Alex and Maxine because of what they were doing and the contributions they were making, but also to give a shout out to the ancient city and library of Alexandria, where the great texts on history, magic, and medicine were stored, which was the mega city from the Hellenistic world. Basically, it's a very powerful name for a very powerful line in memory of a very powerful place. A lot of power there. In 1971, the couple bought a second home in the village of Selmeston in Sussex. Maxine would take to gardening, and some say she was very fanatical about her garden while she was living there. The couple set up a second coven in the township as well. Maxine grew to be concerned, and to me probably justified, that the training and initiations in the London coven were not up to par. She worried that people were being pushed through the ranks without having the knowledge behind rank and title. Big pet peeve. Actually, this is more of like, I'm going to be very angry with you. When you are pushed into a position that you do not have the knowledge of, you have no training in, but you are given a title via whatever purpose, and not with this instance, but there have been other groups where they will pay to get a position and they will be initiated or elevated without cause, without knowledge, without attaining. And this is the type of thing that she was worried about, not so much the financial part, but people being pushed through. So, well, now you're a title of fill in the blank. No. And I don't say that to be mean. I don't say that to be rude. When you're dealing with, in this vein, we'll start with this one. When you're dealing with things that are this powerful, this potent, where you could have a very disastrous effect on somebody, because when you start working with meditation, hypnosis, magic, things like that, if you're not strong enough mentally and don't have the tools at your disposal to handle what is coming through, you can mess people up real bad. That is where you did not want to have that knowledge just be squandered. People need to know. That's why in most, not all, most covens, you cannot elevate to the next level until you have been a year in your current level. So from initiate to first degree is 1 year. First degree to second, minimum 1 year. And you are tested. You fail the test, another year. And that is how you gain knowledge. That's how you gain wisdom. That's how you gain position. There were a lot of rumors over the years, and this is something that Maxine was like, we've put too much into this. Let's double check and let's make sure things were going well. Because there was some hint that there was something not right. So, now that we've got on off that soapbox, they would eventually return to the first house in London and that coven that was there in 1972. It was there that Maxine decided that she no longer wanted to be the queen of the witches. And when I was going through this stuff with working over and researching for Alex, this never came up, so I don't know what happened, but according to her and her side of things, in 1972, she was just kind of done with the whole queen thing. The responsibility, justified, was very great. Can you imagine? You've got a coven of people, by this point numbering about 1,500 in various hived off and etc. You're the queen? That's more than being a high priestess. That's more than being an elder. They all looked to you for this responsibility, and so she was like, we're good. To show how serious she was about stepping down from that position, she burned all of the queenly robes and all items that went with it. Ceremonial burning, like, we're done here. And it could have been she didn't want to be elevated to that position because she didn't want the ego's position of, well, I'm royalty. It could have been a lot of things. Why she stepped away from it was just, the responsibility was a lot, and she was just kind of done. So that's where that went. It is not said exactly why, and even with Alex's, I couldn't find the reasoning behind this part of it, but it was shortly after her being done being queen that Alex would move from the Sussex back to the Sussex house, leaving Maxine and the children in London. Well, it was child at one point. Children came after he'd moved out. Maxine would continue to run the primary coven in London under the name of the Temple Mother. She initiated people in the line of the Alexandrian witchcraft, and I like the fact that she trained her members, and this was something that she added. This was after they kind of split up. It was more of a physical separation because you look at their lives, they may have been physically separated, but they were still very, very close. But when she took over the title of the Temple Mother in the London Coven, she wanted to make sure that the members were more than just everyday members, from initiate to elder. She trained the members and had them go research other ways of learning on healing arts. Reiki, acupressure, acupuncture, aura work, all of it. Her coven became known for their healings, which is a really cool thing to be known for, but also the charitable work. You have earned, you have gained, share your time. It wasn't so much financial, it was, from what I could find, it was going and doing charity drives, soup kitchens, mowing lawns, cleaning things up, helping people take care of each other, kind of being there when people need, filling a need. And this was her addition to the London Coven, and it did spread through the rest of the coven from what I have seen. And that was a pretty cool addition because you don't hear so much about the healing arts in particular in other groups that we've went over so far. It's there, but it's more of a side note. It's not really the focus. She added this into the primary focuses of the group. That to me was pretty cool. As I said before, Maxine and Alex were very, very public with their practices. Several movies and documentaries were made about them, or at least included them, and I talked about more of that with Alex's. You can check that out on the other video. So, where are we at here? Maxine remained very close, as I said earlier, with Alex until his death in 1988. Alex named her his next of kin shortly before he died, basically saying, "My stuff goes to you at this when I pass." After his death, Maxine remained in London until around the year 2000. That year, she moved to Snowdonia in Wales, but she would eventually move to Abbey Road back in London. And I, for some reason, did not know this until I started working through all of this information, because I knew Alex had passed back in the 80s. That was not a surprise to me. That wasn't news to me when I was researching him. And I don't know why I thought this, but I thought that she had passed as well. No. Maxine is the first person that I have discussed on this channel who's still alive. Been doing this for quite a while now, it feels like. But as of right now, she's the first still living person that I have covered. This picture was from a interview I think she did on YouTube a couple years ago. I couldn't find the direct link for it when I was digging, but she's still here. And this is her circa, I think, 2021, 22, something like that. Even here, she has taken on the beauty of what would be called the goddess in her crone form, Maiden Mother Crone. She still is an amazingly stunning woman. I looked at a bunch of newer pictures of her. This one is the one that I felt called to use. But even in recent pictures like this one, she still holds that grace and that beauty that caught Alex's eye so many years ago. Maxine still teaches witchcraft and ritual work in the Abbey Road Coven. She still teaches, travels, giving talks and classes to pretty much anyone that when I was looking into it, that are interested in the vein of the witchcraft that she helped found, so the Alexandrian line. I did find she has a website, and I've linked that in the description. It has some notes about her, nothing too in-depth on that, but there's places you can contact her. There's information about her coven, her teachings, making appointments, things like that. So if you're interested in that, like I said, I linked it in the description. Yeah, in the description it says Maxine Sanders website, and then the website, there's a clickable link, or you can copy and paste. So when I was looking up books for her, because there was a few about him, but a lot of them are out of print, the ones that I could find about her are not in print either, which is frustrating. But one of them, and I put the title in the description of both of the books, but one of them is called Firechild: The Life and Magic of Maxine Sanders, the Witch Queen. But she wrote her autobiography. That's her autobiography. That is something that, if you can find, would be amazing. What kills me about it being out of print already is it was published in 2007. I looked on several websites, including Amazon, could not find a link to a physical copy of it unless you want to spend a fortune. And I'm like, there are certain books I'm willing to spend that much money on. This is not, unfortunately, one of them. I do want to read it, but it's not something I'm going to dump several $100s on right now. So that is her she wrote that one. Then the other one, and I didn't put down, I'm a dork. I forgot to write down the author's name. It is The Ecstatic Mother: Portrait of Maxine Sanders, Witch Queen. And that one was written by someone else about her. And those are the two books, informations that I could find. Like I said, you can check out her website. There's more information there, including on how to contact her if you wanted to do that. But other than that, like I said, I just wanted to wrap up what we talked about with Alex Sanders. For the moment, unless someone has a different idea, I will probably do the next one of these on another Wiccan or witchcraft-based leader, just because we're kind of going down that vein for a second. Other than that, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like on the video, comment down below if you've ever met an Alexandrian witch, if you've ever worked this type of rituals, covens, what your thoughts are on it. If you've had the good luck to meet Maxine Sanders, that would be awesome to hear about as well. If you're comfortable with that, some people are, some people aren't, and that's cool. With that, though, I will let you guys go. Have a great rest of your evening, and thank you for coming by. If I can find the right button. There we go.